Hey guys, this is Matthew, and I wanted to record this video for some graphic design students. It's actually an annual report project for an academic institution. And several years back, I received an invitation from the marketing director at Dannett College for my students to submit some annual report covers. And whoever, then they would submit to the marketing director, and essentially there was some compensation involved. So I thought it was a really great real world example, but also an opportunity for some recognition um, for whichever cover was chosen. So so there were a few parameters to this project. The dimensions are 11 by 8.5 inches. The typography or font was really an unknown. The cover text should read "Where Your Future Begins," which is the slogan for Dannett College, which is part of their branding. And then apparently this happened in 2021 or 2022, or maybe a little bit earlier, because the text was supposed to read 2021, 2022 Dannett College Annual Report. Uh, an additional parameter was to use the branding colors associated with the institution, which are, I just call them Dannett College blue and yellow. Um, but apparently, I guess, according to the marketing director, they were also open to additional colors that might show emotions or warm sensibility. The audience are Dannett College stakeholders, so the council, the board, parents, the community, etc. The logo is provided and has been updated, and the additional items that were provided from the director are essentially campus and student photos, and and possibly additional photos from Dannett College social media that can be downloaded and, dependent on quality, may be leveraged. So I'm just going to jump in. I think it's pretty self-explanatory with this, or this project really explains itself. But I think that this page is handy right here because it shows the color codes for the blue and the gold, and also the existing logo. Um, Here are some examples or precedents of previously completed annual reports at other institutions. So not a tribal college institution, but other institutions having to report to the folks that are holding the purse or the wallet. And previous student examples also with thinking, planning, or sketching in order to come up with something complete. So many precedents to sort of look at for inspiration. I would like to point your attention mostly to this sketching that is done before even touching the software. General layout, making some decisions about where pics might go and where text would go or where a logo would be placed. So I think this sort of thinking can be really handy when you're completing a project. I'm not going to be doing any sketching with this video tutorial because it's on the screen, but I am going to be sort of walking you through some digital methods for how to create some layout options or alternatives that might be useful. Okay. So yeah, here's the required text. I think this is a great example. It feels really um, just it feels traditional, like it feels professional, relatively conservative considering the audience, and also has a beautiful photo of the campus. I think the photo is there's just one image here, and I think that that one image could have been stronger, but I really like the layout here. Okay. So somehow I think this is a really great, strong example. It fulfills the project, no problem. My one critique is that the photo could have been stronger. This was an example done by a former student who was just a fantastically talented illustrator. And if I remember correctly, I think this one did actually win the contest. So, and it's interesting too, because this one did break a rule because it does not say where your future begins. And so it could have easily, that text could have been placed down here at the bottom. I think more than anything, it's just a lesson to really pay attention to the details of a project prompt, whether I'm giving it to you or if it's, a future boss or marketing director. But those details really matter as far as project completion and follow through. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. So now I want to direct your attention to some assets that are included with the project. We've reviewed the PDF a little bit. So if we come over here, this is how I always set up a project folder, and I have project folders actually for these projects that are course driven. And so here's a project folder. I have an assets folder. Like always, I have these larger parent files where I'm organizing or orchestrating all these assets within. And of course, I also archive student work like crazy, but within this assets folder are the items that George Joe gave to us. So if I click on assets here, campus images, campus/student images, and there's so much stuff here just to kind of browse through and possibly use for your project. Okay. And I think a lot of these include professional images that were maybe taken by a photographer that was invited to campus briefly. There's also let's see, here's a PNG of the logo. Okay. And as far as the color codes, the hex, the RGB, and the CMYK are clearly available to you. Okay. So dependent on the Adobe software that you're using, if it's a website, you're going to use the hex, but if you're doing anything print or photo related, you can use the RGB or the CMYK numbers. Okay. So I just wanted to remind you that all that stuff is here for you. In particular, you're going to need this Dene College logo. Okay. If you want to, you can go on social media, and although sometimes those images, the quality gets reduced, they can still be useful. It depends on really the scale of the images and how you're using them on your publication. The first thing I would do is I would open up InDesign. So new file on the top left, there's that blue button. And then I would immediately, in all honesty, I like the increments or units inches. So, and it's 8.5 by 11. I'm also going to name my project -2 -annual -report. And if I click away, that'll actually, the text will correct. My computer's been kind of doing something funny with the characters recently, but it fixed itself. So project 2 annual report, dimensions look good to me. Sure, it's good to go. Okay, let's hit okay. So now we have this 8.5 by 11 sheet, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn on the grid. The grid for me is always pretty helpful. And the other thing I like to do, it might sound a little bit funny, but it's a really great organizational device, is I like to create sort of an array of grids to look at, a grid-like system to look at visually. It just helps me to keep myself organized. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to name this first layer grid. Okay. And I also want to be able to snap to grid. So I'm going to engage that, or you can do that right here. It says snap to document grid. And I'm going to, there we go. Okay, create a rectangle. And I'm going to give that rectangle some color. And I'm just going to be using cyan and magenta, sort of alternating back and forth. This is a very easy beginning step when you're working on a new document, and I just personally find it helpful. It's not an absolute necessity, but I have just found it really helpful over the years. And this is kind of a funny size. I'm actually going to squeak things in a little bit just to accommodate the size of the paper. Rotate this 180, get this into position. And if you're snapping to grid, those things just kind of fall right into place. And then instead of recreating a million of those, I'm just going to copy and paste to move the process along. It's not a perfect system. You back up a little bit, like, okay. So there's a little bit of extra down here. That's okay. Now select everything and reduce the opacity to maybe like 50% so that you can still see the grid below. I don't know if you guys can see that. And if you reduce the opacity, basically means that you can have this visual guide, but you can also rely on the very surgical grid system that's associated with the Adobe product. I gotta save this. I'm actually going to save it in that project folder. I mean, everything has to stay within that project folder so that I can stay organized. If you have files all over the place, like in your documents folder and your downloads folder and your desktop and USB on your keyring, these things just end up getting lost. So my advice is to create one project folder and keep everything there. Okay. And so I'm going to actually save this project. See, my parent course PDF is up here, which is where I would usually save things. But I am going to bury this sample project file in this assets folder right here next to these provided assets from the marketing director. That just makes sense to me. So save. Okay, and now every time I save, I know it'll be safe. Good. Hit Command 0, and that opens things up so you can see everything nice clearly. Now we could start doing some sketching also, like just some general layout. And you could do that even with just the pen tool. Just kind of thinking about how to, oops, how to organize space here. Actually, before I do that, I need to create a new layer. And I'm going to call this layer diagram. Just move that up. Lock that grid layer down so that you're not moving anything down the road. Okay, that didn't work, did it? 1 second, folks, to make sure everything's in the right place. Really weird. Okay, got it. So again, you want this grid on a separate layer so that you can toggle it on and off. And now I'm going to start carving out some diagrammatic strategy here. I want to give that a simple stroke. So zoom in. Corrections here. One of my favorite things about these Adobe products is how precise you can get things. I think what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to set up a relationship between the grid system below And, and, you know, I have this intuitive nature to always sort of run lines through things to create some constraint for myself. And right now I'm really just trying to find or define that constraint. Okay. So there's no real right or wrong way to go about this, except to just kind of follow your intuition. I mean, it's design intuition as well. And the more projects you complete, the more your design intuition just sort of naturally develops. And what that means is that you can solve design problems really, really quickly. You know, I know that I've been given a logo, I've been given a variety of photos. I know I have to just fit all this on one page. So, you know, the rest is just play, right? I'm feeling that right there a bit. Have a good sense of that. Hmm. Okay, let's do something else. I want to go back to my assets folder, and I think I do have, yeah, look at this. I can open this file in Adobe Illustrator, and I can actually just grab these colors and bring them in. So that's what I'm going to do. So I opened this file. It's an AI file. I opened it in Illustrator, and I can just come over here. I'm actually even going to create a new layer and call it color. And I'm not going to put it on the artboard. I'm going to put it sort of on the side here so I can access it later. But those are the two branding colors I want to really be using for this project. And just to be safe, I'm going to hit Command S to save as, okay? Or to really just save, excuse me. I mean, I can already sort of sense where I think I want the Dene College logo. I'm thinking in the lower left-hand corner, but I wonder if it would do well to be more prominent at the top. So, you know, this is a good opportunity to kind of back up and talk about the power of InDesign. InDesign is a compositing software application where you can have these assets in a folder, you know, these are given to you. They're not, basically InDesign is going to be referencing or referring to these photos. It's not going to embed these photos or information into the document. It will simply link to them, okay? And so again, that's why it's so important to have this project file, which I'm working on right now, really in close proximity to these folders that are holding assets, because this project file cannot operate if it cannot find these things, all right? So again, when you're doing project setup, it's really important to create a folder, put everything in there, create a file, and save that file right next to where you'll have all your project ingredients. Because if you, again, if you have things in 5, 6 different locations, and then those things end up accidentally deleting or being deleted and disappearing and just being lost, I mean, that happens all the time. Then your file is just not going to work. So because InDesign is linking or referring to these assets to composite and bring together, it makes it really powerful when you start to work on real large publication projects. Like, let's say you're trying to do like a monograph on an artist, and the artist has, of course, a lot of paintings and drawings and photographs and sketches and all these visual assets that you're going to be arranging on a page. Instead of your file turning into a monstrosity that's 200, 300 megabytes, InDesign ensures that your file is manageable and that your software is not going to crash. But it's also just real beautiful layout. I mean, that's really what we're talking about. We're talking about publication layout. And that's why I really like this project, because it's relatively simple, it's fast, but it can also be completed with a certain degree of elegance if you slow down and kind of pay attention to these details. So that's enough kind of diagrammatic sketching for me with this particular project, but I would like to kind of go back to these types of examples that are on your PDF where students are doing this in their sketchbook and they're doing a really stunning, beautiful job. They kind of know what they're going to be doing, in fact, before they even start. Okay. So their design intuition and their thinking and their planning is happening, not with the software like what I'm doing. It's actually happening with pen and paper. That's the way that I would like for you guys to all approach this. And I would also like to see that evidence in your project uploads online, please. Remember, we save everything. When we're an artist or designer, we save everything. Nothing is lost, okay? We live in a day and age where that's really easy because everyone is carrying around a phone in their pocket, essentially, okay? Okay, so I know folks hear me saying that constantly and over and over and over and over again, but it's really important, okay? So let's start with that Dene College logo. Okay, so what I just did, you can come up here to File, and then you can hit click Place. And when you do that, that's going to bring up this dialog box. And essentially, you need to browse to the file that you want to be working with or that you want to place or composite into your project. I have everything, of course, here's my trusty drive that I have everything on, which by the way, I have multiple backups of. I mean, because if this drive dies, I mean, that's my whole entire life, literally. That's a lot going on. And so I have this drive, which has everything. I have it backed up multiple different times and time periods, just to be safe. Something else to be really mindful of. Click on Archive, Courses, and I have my project folder living right here. Okay. Here we go, logo branding. If I click on there, here's the AI branding, but here's the beautiful PNG that I received from the marketing director. And now I've selected it, and there's like this thumbnail image of the logo. And now InDesign is essentially asking me, well, where do you want to put this logo? And it really doesn't matter at this point. Although what I should have done is I should have created a new layer, which I can still do. And I'm going to call it logo. Because just keeping all of these things organized on your layers palette is good practice. I mean, that's the best way to really put it. Okay. And I'm going to start using this grid system that I have sort of created. That's the reason I spent a little extra time laying this out, because when you have a really good system, design system, it can actually save you a lot of work and time. And I don't know if you guys just saw what happened there. Let me back up. Sometimes I move a little bit fast. So here's this image, and you can even see the way it's a little bit pixelated and looking a little bit funny. Well, the original image doesn't look like that at all. I mean, look at this. It's really clear. Okay, but InDesign is intentionally dumbing down this image, because if we were to put full resolution images of all of these assets in an InDesign document, again, it would overwhelm the computer and the memory, and essentially your software would be crashing all the time. And that's why you see this logo looking a little bit fuzzy. Maybe that's the best way to put it. Okay, so here's the other power of InDesign, is that it's called fitting. So no matter what size I arrange, and this is called, it's basically a frame, a rectangle frame tool. You can create any frame. Like if I create a frame here, there's nothing in it, but I can select this frame, hit Command D for place, or I can come up here, file, place, then I can navigate to the PNG or the Dene College logo, and then I can hit open. And now I have this image in that rectangle frame tool. Okay, so the game is we're just constantly like, framing and placing assets within these frames and organizing them in a sensible way when we're doing publication layout. The only way you can organize things sensibly is to have some sort of an underlying system. That's what this grid is all about, okay? It's that underlying system. And additionally, I've got this other sort of just intuitive framing system that I wanted to follow, okay? That I'm going to follow. And I think that if oh, by the way, before I make any further changes, I want to show you, I can come up here to Object, Fit. I can say Fill Frame Proportionally. Okay, so it's just going to mash everything in there until it fills up the space, either horizontally or vertically. Okay, and I still have that rectangle frame selected. Now I come up here to Object, Fit Content. So we did Fill Frame Proportionally. Now we're going to do Fit Content Proportionally. Okay, well now I can see everything, but it's just a little bit too big, in my opinion. Okay, so now if I squinch this box in, look, it doesn't move the image, but it sort of starts to crop whatever the frame is holding. All right, and so it's a very, very powerful tool. I'm on the fence, my design intuition is on the fence about how big this logo should be, and that to me feels just way too large. So I'm going to continue to move this further in. Object, Fit. Okay, that feels pretty good to me. The other place, and I'm just going to copy and paste this, the other place where I was thinking about putting that was actually down here. Okay. So it really kind of depends on the images. But that being said, these need to be on the logo layer. They're not currently on that layer. I have them on the color layer. So if I want to move these guys, I just simply, I'm holding shift with my left pinky to select two items. I select both of these logos that are currently on the color layer. Just select them again. And then this little icon or little color pops up. It's even telling you, indicates selected items. And then it says drag to move between layers or change the order. That's, the software is very intuitive and it practically, it shows you what to do. So now I can just drag this up to the logo layer. I'm going to lock down the color layer and see now those guys are where they should be because I'm really trying hard to be organized with my layers. That's an amazing skill that designers should have when they enter a marketing office, is to have extremely layered, extremely organized layer management. Okay. Okay, so I've got two opportunities for this logo. And the next thing I want to do is I'm just going to use Helvetica, but I am going to go back to the PDF and recall the text information that the marketing director would like on the front page of this annual report cover. And it says where your future begins. Okay, so it also has an exclamation point. So even those details are very, very important because that's the institutional slogan. So if you try to change that, you're going to upset some people. You got to be very, very careful about that because brands are things that institutions work really hard to protect. I'll give you an example of a brand that was recently destroyed. I mean, let's face it, Elon Musk, he bought Twitter and then he ruined the brand. And he didn't pay a lot of money for the social media platform. What he was really paying for was the brand, which had been built and developed for years and years and years. And then the real truth is, within 6 months, he totally killed that brand, and it lost a lot of customer base. It lost a lot of advertising revenue. And so there are a lot of folks that were perplexed by that strategy, or maybe it wasn't really a strategy. I don't know what it was. But yeah, I mean, that's really dangerous, what he did. But hey, I guess he's the richest man in the world, so that's what folks do when they're in that kind of position. I also want to get the proper spelling of Dene, and I usually have this in a file somewhere, or I can go online and just track it down and then copy and paste. So I'm going to do that. I'm just kind of feeling do it that way. So there it is right here. Dene College. A little difficult to see with the grid on, and I can zoom in where your future begins. And then just to remind myself, the text says, I'm going to change it a little bit. I'm going to say 2023, 2024, typo. Dene College Annual Report. Okay. And that's all the text that we need. It's not a whole lot of text, but believe it or not, that was the text that was specifically given to the designer. Okay. And so if you're the designer and you're not paying attention to those details, the specifics that the client prefers or wants, then you're making an error right out the door. Okay. So now I'm going to start playing around with typography and scale. And I'm pretty sure I want this to be towards the bottom. Okay, and I think I've made it up in my mind that I don't believe that I need the logo down there, but I do want to see the grid again. This is really handy stuff for me because these are the sort of the constraints that help me. Believe it or not, constraints help me to solve design problems more quickly. And sometimes I even design my own constraints, like what I was doing here. Okay. So, but I'm going to use Helvetica. I'm going to open this up. Okay. And I want this to be bold. So I'm going to bold that text just for a minute. And this can be regular. I'll try maybe, because I want there to be hierarchy associated with what I'm doing here as well. So let's flush it left. That's good. I think I just need to bump up the size. It's not going to work though, is it? I do want, this works here, that size, but this does not work. It's not going to fit. Let's keep working at it. We're just experimenting and playing around, but I'm certain that I am, hold on, let's see this faster that way. That's still not going to work, is it? Yeah. Okay. I'm just kind of playing here. I think the way that we can make this work a little bit better, I'm gonna have to move this out because look at all this beautiful space that we've got. I don't see any reason why this can't be a little longer or larger in scale. Yeah, that's better. I'm perplexed why. I think it's because, yeah, if I back up, what you guys saw there was that little plus sign, and that was indicating that there was text on the next line down. But in fact, that was just me hitting enter with my pinky. And there was no content down there, but yeah. So we've got the content pretty well decided, if you ask me, and we can kind of even back up, take the grid away, leave the diagram. I think that's useful, but take this away also. And I did that by hitting Command parentheses, okay? You can turn the grid on and off with Command parentheses on a Mac. Okay, we're getting there. We're getting there. I like this, it feels right. It makes sense to me, especially when, looking at this, that's a system, and those systems, they're not going to lie. I'm breaking the rule here though, a little bit with padding. That might drive a lot of designers crazy. In fact, I think I do want it to line up. I think there's plenty of padding. I think we're good. So I don't know if you guys saw what I just did. I'll zoom in. The typography was starting there, and I decided to scoot it over. Why? Because I want these guys to be in alignment. Okay. So, this logo starts there. So in my opinion, so should the typography. All right. And, that's part of the problem. Once you start setting these constraints for yourself, you can become sort of maybe sometimes a little too rigid in your design system thinking, but the real truth is that helps you to execute and solve problems instead of you moving those things back and forth all day. Well, I don't know if I like it here. Maybe I like it there a little better. And, you could spend all day just fidgeting and nudging things around on a page. But the real truth is if you get a system like this set up, you're going to be able to solve problems quickly. Okay. And that's what a design office wants. They don't want to spend, you're being paid by the hour. Okay. And so that essentially means that you need to move. I think that there's a possibility that this could be bumped up in size too. Let's give it a shot. Yeah. The other thing we can do is we can select this text. And I'm using the text tool, but really like when I double click into this text box, the text tool is, or type tool they call it, it is by default selected. And then I can come in here, select text, and then I can come up here and I can adjust kerning. So there's this like VA up here, and then there's a little 0. Well, you can change the kerning, which is essentially the space between the letter forms. You can give it a little bit more breathing room, which makes it more legible. Okay. And so I'm going to kern this text just a little bit. Okay. That's all it needs. Not too much, like kerning can be excessive. In fact, I think I got a little excessive there. I'm going to keep it at 25. Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Now let's start thinking about photographs. It's really interesting. I kind of I want to use these photos, but I'm not 100% convinced that I want those photos to have color associated with them. I want them to be desaturated or grayscale. So give me a second. I'm just bear with me for a second. This is just an idea that I had. So I'm going to go back to my assets folder and just select. I don't need all of them. So I need to choose a few photos that I really want to run with. I think that's a beautiful photo right there. So I'm going to duplicate because I don't want to overwrite the original. Now I'm going to open with Photoshop. And yeah, that's a nice image because it shows someone getting some real beautiful customer service at Dennett College. I think that's important, and also masking up. But you can come up here to image, mode, and then you can click on grayscale, and then you're going to get this notification. Do you want to discard the color information? Discard, yeah. So now I have a copy of that photo that is kind of primed for working with the cover, because I'm actually going to really leverage the branding colors of the institution instead. I like that one a lot too. I think this is a great image. I need to duplicate it so I don't overwrite the original colored version. Now I'm going to select that image and do the same thing. Open it in Photoshop. Discard the color information, make it grayscale. That's a strong image. I like that a lot. Maybe we could do with less parking lot, right? But even those lines, you know, like the repetition of the lines, I'm really drawn to. So it's a strong image. Save, close. So I'm just prepping these guys. I need a few good ones. That's pretty good too. I mean, there's some nice image here. Nice images here. Duplicate. Very nice. Save. I'm prepping assets. I have an idea of what I want to do, and I'm going to see how I can get there. I'm working to get there. I love that image because it just shows a lot of just joy on campus. You know, that's really important for the stakeholders to see, and also for students to see, right? So, but what a beautiful photo, you know, like just lots of color and so, you know, big smile, everyone's happy. You know, some branding, you know, look at the student carrying around the Dene College folder. You know, that's all of this is set up. Okay, this is not an accident. Marketing wants future students to, and the stakeholders to think everyone's happy at Dene College. This is amazing. We got to show it. So grayscale, discard. Wait a second. I want to make sure I did duplicate that image, right? No, I didn't. I almost made a big mistake. Got to duplicate this stuff so you don't overwrite the original, okay? Now I can open this one and I can get rid of and discard and color information. Mode, grayscale, discard, save. Okay, that's good for now. Let's go back to InDesign. And now I have to create these vectors that are going to hold the photo information. And so we were using the rectangle frame tool to hold items, but the real truth is any vector shape can hold an item. So watch what I did. I just made an object. There's one last click I want to make to close the loop. Whoops. You know you're closing the loop. I'm going to zoom in. When you see the little circle next to the mouse, that means you're closing the loop. Okay, so now I've got this rectangle object, select it, and I hit Command D or for place, and I can actually place the Dene College logo in there as well. You know, anything, like all of these objects can hold objects, right? Okay, so that's not exactly what I want. I know I need a swath of color down this direction, so I'm just going to sort of lightly sketch this out. Okay, I've got that one. Got that one. I'm using the pen tool to make these shapes right now, okay? And this. You guys can see how when you have an idea, this actually goes really fast. If you don't have an idea, I mean, these kinds of projects can take a long time. But when you've got a sketch or an idea in your head, you're just moving. So the next thing I got to do is I got to make some adjustments and get these guys where they're supposed to be. So I also have to make sure I do this quite often. I'm accidentally putting these on the wrong layer. So I actually need to create a layer for photographs or just photos. And I want that layer to be below the diagram layer. Okay, so you can move layers around. Make sure you don't move them inside layers. You want to move them below. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And the white arrow tool can just grab these anchor points to make adjustments. And that's a funny spot right there because it's more of an intersection. There's not a point. So hold on a second. Remove this for a second and rely on just the power of like smart guides. I think that's it right there. But all of these need to be selected and moved to the photo layer. That one. It's the same. And this last one down here. Save it, give it a save occasionally. And make some adjustments here. I turned off snapped document grid. It's a little funny down here because that's not quite on the grid. That's so, yeah, it's a little bit of a pickle right there. We'll figure it out though. That's, Illustrator gets a little bit more precise because you can snap to point a little bit more easily. We also need to lock down this diagram. It's distracting us. So there's that other one that we essentially want to. Looks pretty on center to me. Hmm. Start with this one just for fun. I'm going to select this triangle and you can see it's selected there. There's the border right there. It's just a simple triangle coming from the diagram that I created. Hit Command D for place and then navigate to your assets folder where you have some of those images that you were working with and choose the right image as well. I wonder, I'm not sure if that's it or not, but it can't be fit to frame. It has to be fill, object, fill to frame. Oops, select it again. Object, fill to frame. That's not showing all of the photograph. And by the way, now I can double click in and then, whoa, darn it. Pardon, guys. Double click in to the image and then use your cursor and you can kind of nudge things around. But yeah, that photo is not going to work there. We'll have to try something else. I wonder if that photo will work in this big area. I have a feeling it might, but I don't know until we get there. I do know that I need to grab these guys and get them in place. Let's try it again. Command D. Now remember, it intentionally dumbs the image down. That's why it's looking a little fuzzy. Okay. We need to swap this out for a copy. I think that one might fit in there nicely. Yeah, it's not bad. Object, fill frame. And when you double click it, it kind of shows some detail. Unfortunately, that individual is getting cut out. Maybe what we need to do, right? I'm going to propose something radical. Maybe what we really needed was we have to simplify a little bit. Sometimes when you're working, you just have to make some changes. But I'm still thinking about the grid or the system. Snap, 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 snap. Nice. Okay. Select the shape. And by the way, the shape, it's kind of hard to see. The only way that you can really see it is, if you take away this grid, you can see it being highlighted there with like the pink magenta line. That being said, select, hit Command D, and now I'm going to try. I really like this one. I wonder if we can get it to fit. Yeah, that's actually really nice. Object, fill frame. I like that. I'm just thinking, just looking at this. I need to make an adjustment here. Use the white arrow tool to grab that anchor point. Get these guys into position to accept. See, this one has some handles and it's skewing the line a little bit. We might have to redo this because that'll cause you some problems. So I'm going to delete that. When you're placing these anchor points, you don't want to drag your mouse too much. Otherwise you'll get those anchor points. So just kind of go slow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 without dragging too much. Okay, now these guys will pop right in there. Open. Ooh, that's interesting. Did that happen? We didn't close the loop. Guys, we got to do it over again. It's okay. Real slow. 1, 2, 3, 5. And make sure you see that circle. Yep. Now it's closed. Now grab that anchor point. It'll slide right into that grid. It's weird. Weird glitch with the screen, huh? Okay, that's ready to accept information, folks. So let's see what else we can find. Sometimes you don't need all of these photos. If you look at some of those precedents, they don't. You don't always need just a whole page full of photos. Um, yeah, in fact, I'm going to go with my gut, and I think that's enough. Mhm. Um, yeah, I have another idea for this too. So I think I want this to be yellow because the black will have nice contrast against the yellow. So that means I need to select this shape, and I need to come over here and find the eyedropper tool, or just hit I for eyedropper. I'm going to select the yellow. I'm having a change of heart. Let's try another photo again. I think it has to be the big smile here if it's going to be anything. Object, fill frame proportionally. It's still a little. What we can do is we can kind of stretch this out a little bit so it'll work real nicely in there. And that's not bad. And I know, like right now, we're obscuring the typography. And actually, this is going over there, so I know it kind of sounds crazy. We're gonna have to reduce the size. Come back to that. Okay, I had this idea where I wanted these real beautiful kind of shapes. Yeah, I'm gonna create another layer called shapes. Make sure that those are going on this new layer so I can stay organized. So the diagram is on top, then the shapes, and then the photos. This shape, I want to have an opacity of like 50. And this is you may or may not like what I'm doing here with this design, but I know I want it to be just simple. And I like this image up here. I don't want to cover that up. This image of the school is really nice, but I mean it's not that nice, is it? But maybe I should move the triangle to one of these because the building is being obscured right now. You can also always move the photos around a little bit. Like, look at what I just did. That kind of helps quite a bit. Um, okay, so kind of modifying the game plan as I'm moving along a bit, which is fun. Makes things exciting. Now, this is what the problem I was pointing out, this T. Um, it's reaching a little too far. Okay, I'm just playing right now. I'm on the right layer, shapes, creating a closed object. Some adjustments. Zoom in a little bit so I can really grab these anchor points. We got to zoom in here because this is, remember, not quite on the grid, but it has to be obscured by these lines. So we can kind of fake it a little bit. That's well enough. And I want this to be, have that nice yellow. So I'm gonna hit eyedropper. Maybe just happened there. Okay. So I accidentally selected the photo and this, and that's not what I want to do. Now redo. Okay, that's better. And I wonder, wonder if I should keep this full opacity. I don't really feel like I'm covering up a lot, but I'm also remaining true to the DC colors by not reducing the opacity, right? I like that. It's turning out quite nice. This is a fast kind of annual report cover solution. I do need something to pop to make this text pop. And I also don't want to obscure this beautiful student's face, and she's smiling so bright. I can make her more centered. It's kind of nice. What do you think? That's good. I like that. That works. Okay. So we have these photos kind of showing the campus, showing students working, showing students happy. Now I just need to brighten. I essentially need to put something behind this text to make it pop. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mask, or maybe mask isn't the right word. It's essentially just it's going to be a white rectangle, frankly. But with the opacity reduced so that we can still see some of the photo. Not all of the photo, but some of the photo. And I want to have a little bit of padding too. Just a little bit like that. Okay, now I'm gonna, yeah, okay. I gotta make this shape layer go away for a moment so I can see. And that's the mask layer. Now what I need to do, I want to create another object with the pen tool to slice into that object. But I also I want it to be perfect. So I'm going to use the grid really closely to do that operation. It's going to be, this is just a temporary thing. Okay, guys? Don't worry. There. It's here. Well, let's see. Window. No, there's a pathfinder here. Select that object, select this one. Oops, I got that backwards, didn't I? This needs to be behind. So I can select that shape I just made. It needs to be behind in order for this to work. Send to back. Select both objects while holding Shift. Cut. It's really being a pickle, isn't it? Let's try it this way. And by the way, oh, I see what happened. Okay, we gotta make the text go away for a moment. In fact, we didn't do that. Typography should always have its own layer and should always generally be at the top. So select the typography. It was on the logo layer. Lock everything down. That's why it's a good thing to lock things down. Okay, let's try it again. There we go. And I want this to be like 80, I don't know, 60%. See how that text is popping now? But we've got a problem. This text is just a little too long. So I'm just going to shorten it. But I'm going to add some kerning. You know, another thing that I could have done, though, I think, to solve that problem, I don't think we needed these extra spaces. It's still a little tight. I think if we actually go -10, it might work. So I tightened it up. That's pretty cramped. I am not comfortable with that. I'd rather keep it at 0. Yeah. So this is a little tight for me, you know, for the sake of just kind of wrapping this project, I'm going to leave it, but that's really not a lot of space there. It's okay in the end, I think, you know, it works. I think if I were delivering this to a client, I would probably spend a little bit more time with the typography to get it right. But I mean, this is really just a walkthrough tutorial to give you an idea of how to use InDesign and a few things, okay? So we don't need this anymore. And unlock this logo layer, delete that. We've got the logo up here. We've got the required text. We used some of the photos that the marketing director wanted us to use. I think it works. You never know until you export those. So when you're ready to export, I mean, I would go to File, Export, Adobe PDF Print. Project 2 Annual Report will be the title. And you could even say like draft or final, you know, whatever it is, because sometimes you just want to look at a draft. And then you can really, like, you know, change the compression. So I have mine set. So any images above 225 PPI will be reduced to 150 PPI. And so I'm going to hit export. InDesign does a little bit of thinking. Now I'm going to go back, and there it is. Here's that image. It really doesn't look too bad. I think it's an okay example. Okay. I do have some issues though. I think that the logo is a little too big and a little bit too cramped up here, and I still have a problem with this. So the typography needs to be reworked here. Let's just do it right now. I mean, I just know that these are problems. So I'm going to have to go back and make some changes and talk to my grid again. But yeah, this cannot go all the way to the edge there. It needs some padding. So I'm going to squinch everything in. Now I'm going to select it, Object, Fit Content Proportionally. I'm also going to go back to this being there, which exacerbates this problem. Because look, here's if I bring back the diagram, now that T is totally crossing into that territory. But I mean, sometimes you can make other adjustments, you know, so maybe I didn't need the 20 of the 23 and the 20 of the 24. So it still reads just fine. And now look at all this beautiful breathing room I have over here. Yeah, that's much better. Only thing I think I would do is bring, let's leave it, you guys. We could see, as I was saying, you can fidget and you can nudge things around all day long. You can spend a lot of time doing this. And at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, okay, when does my boss want all this stuff by? Because I'm fidgeting. Save it again. File, export. Now we're going to call this draft -2. All right, save. Go back to your project folder. Now you should see that second draft, open it up. Yes, I'm more comfortable with that. The logo has some breathing room around it. And yeah, this is much better. And, you know, let's say someone is going to pay you $200 or $300 to do this, and you did it in what, under an hour? Not bad. Just looking at additional changes that I might be interested in. Hmm. I like the simplicity of this. Again, I think if I wanted to tinker and spend more time doing this, I would play with the typography even further to get it right. But I am pretty happy with where the logo is sitting. It's not covering up anyone's face. Like everyone's faces are pretty clear, like the eyes and you know the expressions. They're not being obscured for the most part. This leading line is part of it's really part of my training. I think that leading lines like that and exposing and leaving the process marks or the structure or the rationale really, I think that can be useful in design. That is a personal choice. Okay, so you guys are actively trying to find, you know, your methods and your beliefs as far as design. I'm going to leave that there. Okay. Thank you, everyone.